All right, so we are working on our form stuff here, and we're going to need to actually use our React Hook form, which I know I said that we weren't going to use this, but it really is. It's fine. And this again, there's nothing you can't learn by just reading documentation. I promise you, if you get in the habit of saying, I want to learn to work with forms, and you just go and find tools for forms and see how they work, you'll learn everything you need to know about forms. So, one of the things that we're doing here is we're using React Hook Form. I showed you this website earlier. But why would we need to use this, right? Why can't I just do this like I would in normal HTML, CSS? So the problem here is that because React has all of these components that talk to each other and they're interwoven, that's part of the work that we actually have to kind of work around, right? So we've gotten with HTML, CSS type things, we get used to, I want to, just do this thing, and it's really simple. You use these tiny little pieces, and that's great. But as soon as you start having lots of moving parts all together, that starts to get a little bit hairy a little bit quickly. And so I think for applications like Facebook, where there's lots of stuff moving on, there's lots of data going back and forth, I think it's absolutely the right choice for them. I would personally say that for like if you're just making a portfolio website, there's no reason to make it in React. Just make it in HTML and CSS. If you need a little bit of JavaScript to help with like, oh, I wanted to transition when I do this, or I want that kind of thing, then that's fine. But honestly, things like just doing a contact form, I wouldn't even use React for. Anyways, that's my little rant. You don't have to listen to me if you don't want to. But I think React is great for big websites that have multiple moving pieces. That's where I think React really shines. And so in this case, since we have to use React for this, there have to be ways of making sure that the components all talk to each other well, and that's part of what we're working on here. And so we got this nice form here, that kind of thing. This is actually another really great example. If you have components that are awaiting data from here, they've got refs into this, they're pulling data out of it, right? I can type da 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 da. That's great, and this thing flashes and blinks. And this one, you'll see here that on a form that doesn't use this, these components, because they're getting refs from this, you can see that as I'm typing, they're re-rendering, they're changing their data, and there's a visualization here of what's going on. But you get the idea, right? That under the hood, these components that are waiting on data from here, they're re-rendering every time that this ref changes. And so React Hook Form helps us wait until that submit occurs for those refs to get passed along, and that's really useful. So you can see here how, again, a few more examples of this. This is just some speed stuff. By the way, this if you're wondering where this comes from, you can always go and check the performance. And so if you're ever wondering what's going on here, you can refresh a page, and ostensibly, I don't have Web Vitals turned on on my app. That's okay. But we can even go to here and inspect, and go to performance, and performance, and I should be able to just like refresh the page, something along those lines. Maybe not. I haven't done this in a while. Oh, there we go. Anyway, so you can see this is where all that stuff comes from. And so if you're ever building apps and trying to compare how you built it one way versus how you built it another one, the performance tab is where you're going to be looking for. And I am obligated to tell you that exists. And now I've told you it exists. And that's where that all stuff is coming from. And the further along you go into React, the more you'll have to know these kinds of things. If working in the back end, doesn't really matter. But highlights, community, great, nice, cool, live demo. So this is what I want to show you, right? So I can put in LaCroix, and my last name is Can, and LaCroix at can.com, and you'll see that this is what's being watched. So this is I want you to think of this process here as like git add, git commit, git push, right? And so you've got your git add here. You're putting your stuff together, bing bong. I'm surprised that worked. That shouldn't have worked. But that would, I don't know, whatever. So we're gonna say the phone number is 5. But I can also do things like this. So you see this error where it says, "Oh no, you have to have something here, right?" Mobile number needs to have a minimum, like those kind of things, right? And so you can see that there's something here, and it's mad that I didn't submit everything, etc. Oh, I didn't know that was gonna happen. Oh, you can just change the code over here. That's nice. This is just this Kind of cute. Anyways, but you get the idea, right? This is why we're using the React Hook form stuff, and you can imagine that trying to write all those bits and pieces out would take quite a bit of homework. And so we are trying to avoid all of that extra homework by installing things, and I think this is what I want, right? Yeah, cool. Sometimes you just like do things, and then you have like, ever think about walking? And as soon as you start thinking about walking, like everything's wrong. And you're like, am I doing this right? Yeah, every once in a while I'm coding and I get this like, I know how to do this. I've done it a million times, but now I can't figure which button does what. Anyways, all right. So we're gonna say npm install React Hook form, and I believe that's the right install. And there we go. So that's nice. And so now I should be able to disappear that. And I should be able to just import, which has an M and an R in it, believe it or not, use form. If I can spell, this will work out. Great, so that's there. So now it's imported. Now I just have to figure out how to use it. And this is where that register, I believe, comes from eventually. Yes, indeed, that is where it comes from. It doesn't look like it comes from there, but that's okay, because we're just not done with this yet. So we need to, we're gonna be messing around with a whole bunch of stuff in here. So first of all, oh, I'm not even using that one. I'll just get rid of that. Nice. So we'll just ignore that. All right, contact form props. So we're actually gonna be passing things into this contact form, and I believe that comes from our data table. Give me a second. I gotta figure out where all my stuff is. Put my head on straight. Oh yeah. Okay, cool. So I remember where it is. If we go back to our modal, our contact form here, if we are going to be updating certain things, right? The colors will load in a moment. If we're gonna be updating things, think about it this way, right? So we have our phone book. We've got a contact, and we're gonna say that Fred has a contact in our phone book. And I click on Fred, and I say I want to update Fred's contact, right? He moved to a different part of town, so I need to change his address, right? So you click on Fred, and I need to be able to find a way of getting his ID, right? Which is that under the hood unique identifier in the database, saying I need to take this piece of data, I need to change part of it, and then send it back to the database, right? And so that's what we're trying to do here, is we're going to target that ID and change any of the data that we want to. Marvelous. This means that our contact form needs to have that ID passed in so that it knows which piece of data it's actually modifying. And so we're going to use props to do that. It needs to come from actually the modal, and from, I think above the modal, it needs to come from the data table ultimately. I believe. Let's see. Does the modal have anything coming in? Yeah. Oh, maybe not that one. We're going to see how we... Oh, I'm looking at the wrong code. Of course, it's not going to work. Let's see. Yeah, props ID. Yes. So we are going to have to pass that into the modal eventually from our data table. So we're going to look through this. We're going to do some multi-staged, multifaceted props shenanigans. But let's write out our contact form the rest of the way first, or at least the next chunk of the way, and then we're going to start looking at where that comes from. So first things first. After our imports, is where we're going to have our interfaces. Actually, we just have the one of them. So we say interface contact form props. And this is going to take an ID, which is optional, and it will be a string. And then we're going to have some data, potentially, and this will just be an empty object. We'll talk about that in a little bit, too, what that's going to look like. But that's because we're going to need to actually be passing some things along into this. So our contact form now is going to have props, and this will be contact form props. Easy enough. And we're still passing this along, but now we're going to need to start thinking about what we're going to do with those props. And so that's why we're going to write our handle submit function and similar. Yeah, that'll be fine. So we're going to use the use form hook. This is where this comes in useful. And I'm going to talk about how this works. We also get that register thing out of it, which we're going to see in a moment. And a handle submit is going to be an automatic piece of this. And there's some other fancy tools that we're not using. But we're going to say const, and this one's a little bit weird. Register and handle submit. Use form. I'm going to leave it like that. And have register. There we go. Okay. And so this is going to be similar to use state, but in this case we have a handle submit function. And the idea here is that when we use that handle submit function, that's going to actually use the form data and it's going to actually apply the use form magic to our form. Where are we going to use the handle submit function? Handle submit function goes right there. And we need to write a new function here called use submit. I don't remember if I have parentheses here. Nope, it's going to be on submit. When is going to have an on submit function? It's going to be called on submit. And it doesn't exist yet, so we're going to go ahead and make one. So we're going to say const on submit equals, and we're just going to have this log pass for right now. Just say, hey, I'm not actually doing anything right now. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take this register thing and remove this useless assignment to variable register. We're going to put this in all of these. So we're going to have, I'm going to do boom, 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 and I'm going to do space, and it's going to say ... register. And again, this is some odd syntax. I get that. Put name here, email here, phone number here, and our address. But what we're doing here is we're saying I want the use form hook to have access to my inputs and all the data that's inside of them. And I want to be able to pass that information down as props all the way into here. And so that's ultimately what's going to be happening is it's going to actually feed it all the way down, and then it's going to be able to actually use that ref, and they're going to talk to each other and take that registered information and pull it back and send it to our on submit function, because that's part of the handle submit function from use form. I know that's a lot. If you have to rewatch what I just said a few times to get a better idea of what that was, feel free. But that's where we're at so far. Very nice. And the next part of this, we don't have the parts for yet. And so that's probably going to be the next video. I'm going to break that down again because the next thing we're going to do is we're going to be doing what's called shared state. And I need to do more diagrams and more explainerating. And we're going to finish handle function with state management. Great. So that's going to be the next thing we do. And that should be, we're going to get really close to being done with the contact form. But then we're going to need to figure out how to pass our ID through. And so again, if I do this, suddenly someone should get mad. Yep, the modal should get mad. Good. And that's what we want. We got to make sure that we actually are ready to pipe that data through from the modal. Great. We're going to talk about state management in the next lecture. I'll see you there.